I know what you're thinking. What in the gosh darn is Bits and Bombs? Bits and Bombs is a podcast deep diving into what it takes to do stand-up from a different comedian every episode. Follow new open micer Peter Doms in his journey to be an okay comic.
I like baiting greenies, you know? I do. I like to go to West End markets and just ask people who are selling candles if they're also like providing offsets for their candles' emissions. You should see their faces. They're just like, what? Should we be selling offsets? Maybe we don't. And then their capitalist mind takes over and they're like, we would definitely be able to get some coin selling offsets, right? Like,
Righto.
Oh, right-o. Nigel Seto.
Peter Doms, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
You're great?
I'm loving life.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's the way to be.
It is the way to be.
Yeah.
So when was your first gig?
My first gig was a Magic Mike in South Brisbane at the Milk Factory.
Oh, okay.
It was a gig that Chris Martin and I don't remember his name. It was Michael, one of the early Big Fork guys. They used to run that at the Milk Factory. That was in like the end of 2019, I think.
Yeah. I've heard a bit about the Milk Factory, actually.
Yeah, it was a really good gig. It was like a half curated, half open mic gig. And they had a couple of people that were meant to be on, and then it was just like sign up on the night.
Yeah.
And it was a bit like chaotic sometimes because they'd get like 50 people coming in and there was only like 6 or 7 spots.
Yeah, I was going to ask how many, because usually on the night stuff, there's like 30 spots.
Yeah.
And the whole lineup is on the night. So it's interesting that there's about 6, 7 spots.
Like, I don't know. You'd have to ask Chris, but like,
Yeah.
I think when they sort of started out, there maybe wasn't that many people in the scene.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it grew and grew. And it was quite hard to get... when I first started out, I was trying to get like the sit-down open mic spots.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a different process to how it is now to get those open mic spots. You had those like call-in things.
Yeah.
So you got given like a colour. I was pink. You got given like a colour and said, okay, if you're in the pink category, you have to call up on Wednesday at 3 p.m. And ask for a spot. And I would call up on every Wednesday at 3 p.m. and never get a spot because by 3:05, all the spots had been taken.
Jesus.
And I'd call up at like 2:58 and they're like, nah, it's too early. You can't get in.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so like there was quite a lot of people trying to, I guess, start around that time. And Magic Mike was the only place that you could sort of just like rock up and try your luck. And I got on a couple of times and yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So that was the first gig. So that was probably my first 2 or 3 gigs. Was Magic Mike.
Yeah, sweet. So back to the sit-down thing real quick. What did pink indicate? Was that like
it was just like a category. So
category.
Like, there'd be like different colours and they had different like call-up times, I guess. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure mine was like Wednesday, 3 p.m. And, yeah, there would have been different call-up times for different categories, I think. And, yeah, I don't really know how it worked, but I never got a spot.
yeah, okay. At least like now it's all like Google Forms and stuff.
Yeah, it's really easy now.
So everyone can like at least apply, and then it's from them to choose.
And you can
who
do
gets
it in
what.
your own time as well. You don't have like the specific window.
Yeah, you have like 2 days to. You have like comes out every Monday around lunchtime. And then you have until like Wednesday lunchtime or something to do it. So
no, it works really well now.
Yeah, cool. So you did your first. So did you do? So your first few gigs were at the Milk Factory?
Yeah.
How'd your first gig go?
First gig went really well. So I had one joke. I pretty much started with one joke and then one little sort of half-assed routine about airports. But the one joke went really well. And then the sort of airport bit was a little bit okay, but I was still sort of high off the inertia of the first joke going well.
So what makes you say that one was a routine, the other was a joke? Was it just you trying to like just tell a story, or
yeah, it was sort of more of a premise rather than an actual joke.
Yeah.
And so there was no real punchline. There was no real, way to finish it. It was just like, hey, this is a weird situation.
Yeah.
And the crowd was like, yeah, I guess.
That's that's wacky. Yeah, okay. Cool. So, first gig went well. Did you have any friends and stuff supporting you?
Just my wife. And there was one guy in the crowd who was like randomly there, but not for me. So like he was supporting another person, and he was like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? I was like, oh, I'm actually doing stand-up. And he was like, oh, yeah, no way. So I had two people there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't bring my friends into stand-up until maybe my fifth or sixth gig.
Yeah.
I did the Waterloo down in Wynnum a few times. You've done that, right?
Yeah, I've done it, yeah.
So I brought a lot of my mates along to that, and like some of my family members along to that, which a lot of the time they were the whole crowd, which was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Waterloo was a good gig. There's a lot of mixed reviews about the Waterloo, I find, but I really loved it because I loved how you didn't know what the crowd was going to be. Like sometimes there was like 30 people there. There was like fucking rowdy bunch the day, in the event before, because they had like the topless barmaids and stuff beforehand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think all that stuff was before.
It was before No. It would have been when you were there.
Oh, okay.
They still run it. But so it was like the like topless barmaids went from like 4 to 6, and then they had comedy at 8 o'clock. And so sometimes
the combo.
sometimes that crowd like spilled over.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was mayhem because you just had drunk idiots like.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense because I've definitely seen those that type of crowd there. Like, the kind of like tradie dudes that just crossing their arms, looking at you.
And they've clearly just like been on the piss for 4 hours and like, oh, let's just go like laugh at these nerds trying to do comedy. And sometimes you get terrible heckles, but sometimes you get really funny heckles because they'd just be like drunk guys enjoying themselves.
But it's also such a big, such an open venue too. So it's like you have some people, at least the setup when I went there, it was like they had a few couches like in front of you. Yeah. But then on the left of the stage, there was like a big like dining area. Yeah.
Were you in like the beer garden-y area?
No, I was inside.
You're inside in the room.
Inside, yeah. I think it might have been like raining or something maybe. That's why it was...
Oh, okay. So were you there when James was running it or when Liam was running it?
Liam was running it.
Oh, okay. So yeah, before Liam ran it, a guy named James Hansen used to run it. And
okay.
It wasn't in that area. It was in like this sort of dingy little, like almost like kind of waiting room area. It was really tight, really packed in.
Okay.
And it was annoying because it was also kind of in a thoroughfare. Mm-hmm. So that was another annoying thing about the gig was that people would just like walk through and be like, oh shit, there's comedy going on.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was going from like the pokies to the dining room. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, what a transition into a room.
That's why Liam moved it outside because it's like, this is crazy in the dinky little area. But I kind of loved it there. Yeah. Because it provided so many random moments.
Yeah, it's funny some of the rooms and some of the locations we get for gigs. Yeah, in terms of like just placement in the venue.
You get a little bit desperate sometimes when like you're talking to venue owners and you're just like, oh, we could maybe do it here, and like I think sometimes a lot of room runners need to sort of slow down and go, okay, this isn't like I really want to put a show on somewhere, but sometimes you got to just sort of like step back and go, okay, no, this isn't fit for purpose, or
yeah. I love those like rooms where there's the entrance is right next to the stage. Yeah. So every time anyone comes or goes, like it's a big thing.
Or the toilet is right next to the stage.
That's the worst one. I went to a gig recently and I was like, I did a gig recently in Sydney and it was that same thing where like someone was like recording their set. Yeah. So I was like, I really need to take a dump. So I just crossed the road and just went to the fucking dive bar across the road.
I mean, that's very thoughtful of you, not just like, going right next to the
not killing someone's footage. It was one of those gigs too where they're like, oh, we're just going to run through and not having a break.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
So yeah,
I've timed someone going to the toilet before, like when I've been on stage.
That's my worst nightmare.
And like I kind of hate when people sort of say something when someone gets up, like, because as an audience member, it's really awkward. But I thought I'd just sort of try it out. And so, yeah, this guy stood up. I was like, "Oi, where are you going?" And he's like, "The toilet." I was like, "I'm going to time you." And he came back like 4 minutes later. I was like, "You took a dump." And it's like, yeah. It was like one of the best bits of my set that night.
How long was your set?
Sorry?
How long was your set?
It was 7 minutes, yeah.
7 minutes? Oh, okay, because I was like, oh, that's...
But yeah, he sort of like, I got on stage and then he like immediately got up. So I was like, "Oi, where are you going?" Yeah.
Nice. Time of people's dumps. Yeah, okay, cool. So you did... So Milk Factory, Waterloo, like what was the... That was like still end of 2019?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a break because of COVID. So I sort of started and then COVID happened and then I dropped off a bit. So when I came back, I guess maybe end of 2020, 2021, it's kind of all sort of merged into the same thing at the moment. But yeah, so kept doing Waterloo, kept doing, got onto some more like sit down open mics and I did one of my earlier gigs was Crack Up, like the one that Zach Hadfield used to run as well. And that was he used to run them at Good Chat. Yeah. But it was his night. So yeah, that was one of my earlier competitions. And I did the Brat Pack as well, which was really good competition as well. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. How did you go on like Brat Pack and stuff?
I didn't make it past the heat in my Brat Pack. I did in my heat was like Meg Yeager and Ben Hunter. And yeah. So
the killers. Yeah.
The killers. And so, so I didn't get past that heat, but I was still pretty happy with how I went. And it also sort of got me in with the Good Chat guys, as like the Brat Pack is. That's just sort of like the way to get in front of them, which is really good. And yeah.
Yep. Did you ever compete in Raw and stuff too?
I've done Raw. I've done Raw twice. And again, never gotten past the heats. But yeah, I find the Raw competition a little bit weird in that I get a bit nervous about the really strict time requirement. And I also get strict, even though my set's not very dirty, I get a little bit in my head about like how clean I need to be.
Yeah.
And like both the times I've done Raw, I've not done well. Like I've not sort of done my best 5 minutes, which I think is what you really need to be doing.
Yeah, the time thing I got into my own head about too. Like I cut my set down heaps thinking that I had like maybe 4.5 minutes, and I was like running under 4 minutes or something, like 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So a lot of people like when I was doing gigs around that time, a lot of there was a few times that MCs had to like run to the stage because like, what the fuck, you done already?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so the first Raw I did I was worried that my material was too dirty, and I did a completely different set. Like I did all new material in my Raw set.
Oh, yeah.
And I've never done that material ever again. So it was like the one night that I did that material. And yeah, the second set I had a bit in there that usually goes for a lot longer, and I tried to sort of cut it down to get into that 5 minute thing. And yeah, I just didn't do it effectively, really. Yeah.
How do you go about, how do you go about like cutting down, like to making sure that you're at like like when you're doing a 5 minute set at a club or whatever, what makes you think that you've got 5 minutes or under 5 minutes?
I don't usually think about it that much.
Yeah.
So when I write my material, I will have I've got like a rule of like, half a page is a minute, or so that's how I set it out. And then I've got little notes in my notebook that like, if I do this joke, like this joke is 30 seconds, this joke is a minute, this joke is a minute and a half, and just, do the correct combo each time. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good way to do it, is calculating, I guess, how long each joke can kind of go for.
Yeah, it's a very engineering way to just be there's a minute and a half here, a half here.
But as soon as something that like off the cuff happens, it kind of can throw.
It does throw it a little bit.
Yeah.
But like I don't think people are that like unless I go for ages on that particular tangent. Like most people aren't that strict about time limits. So if you've got a 5-minute set and you go 5.5 minutes, not many people, really worry about it.
Yeah, I think I never went over time until recent. I went like 30 seconds over like a 7-minute set or something. I was like, oh fuck, I felt so bad. Like, don't worry about it. Yeah, because I've always been so like, I think that raw thing too is like drilled in, like need to be under the like don't run the light kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
sometimes I do like really short sets. I've done like 2 minute, 3 minutes before really punchy. And sometimes I've like intended to do that, and sometimes I've just sort of like raced through my material and not pause where I should have or whatever. And that's usually because I'm nervous on stage or like just like most of the time when I'm on stage I want to stay there. I'm like when people come up to you, I'm like, oh God, you must be so nervous when you get up on stage. You're like, no, I love it. Like, I'm addicted to being on stage. That's most of the time, but some of the time I'll get up on stage and I'm like, oh fuck, I really want to get off right now, and like I'll cut my set short. Like
I do that. No, I've been trying to like stop doing that because I'm so bad for like cutting it short, especially if there's like 3 people there. I get like super discouraged. And I'm like, but it's also like that's the time where you should be like fucking around a bit more.
Absolutely, yeah. That's really, and if you think about it, like you only get a set amount of spots each week or like each night.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've really got to make the most of that time. But so when I first started out, I did cut things a lot short, and now I really make sure that I take the time that's been given to me because you kind of have to a little bit. I did a talking about like shows with only 4 people there. I did a show last year where they almost cancelled the show because nobody turned up, and there was a few people sort of like a few of the comics were just like sitting outside the gig or sitting outside the venue, talking shit and kind of laughing about the situation. And then most of them left, and I was there with Ashwin, who you've had on the podcast. I was there with Ashwin, and 2 people rocked up, like 2 audience members rocked up, and he had a headline gig the next night or something. So he was like, "Do you mind if we just do a gig?" And it was just me and Ashwin because everyone else had left. It's just like, "Do you mind if we do a set for these guys? Because I really want to try some material out." And I was like, okay, yeah. And I think I did like 5 minutes and it was okay. And then Ashwin did like 10 minutes and it was really good. And then 2 more people rolled up. So he did like 10, maybe 15 minutes to 4 people. And it was hilarious. It was like some of the best material, and the 4 people loved it. So, you can have, it's not ideal. It's really not ideal, but you can have a good show with just a couple of people in the audience.
Yeah. As long, I feel like, It's hard, right? Because the bigger the crowd, the more chance like people are like. When you think of like, I guess the numbers side of things, it's like 50% of the crowd.
Yeah,
or like a certain amount.
A big crowd is ideal.
Yeah, big crowds. Yeah, obvious one. But it's like obviously the smaller crowd that gets to let like the higher the chances are people might not like your style or whatever. Like especially like certain demographics, like 2 old people in the front.
Yeah,
it's a little bit like, oh, I hope you like what I have.
Yeah, I think so. What Ashwin did really well that day is you just sort of got to acknowledge, okay, this is the situation. There's only 2 of you. We're gonna, have almost a conversation rather than putting on a show. And and so you kind of just make the situation work, which is fun.
Yeah, that's what I need to learn too. Is because I don't do crowd work or anything. I haven't even attempted it.
Yeah,
and I feel like the only way to do well is less about like doing jokes and more like just like talking and engaging with the crowd.
Yeah, at
smaller gigs.
I don't do too much crowd work. I I try to like almost write crowd work when I do crowd work. So I do bits that are sort of, I'll ask the crowd a question and I'll expect a specific answer. And that usually works really well. Sometimes if you get like a really wayward answer, you're like, oh fuck, I've got no idea how to go off this now. But
is that, do you link those to a joke? So if you have a joke about, is it you that has a joke about you'll ask someone if they own a dog or something?
Yeah.
Okay, that's like a perfect example.
Yeah. So like, I could do that bit without talking to the crowd, but it's nice if you just like involve the crowd.
Yeah, it's a good way to learn that muscle too. Is that because if you like ask someone, what do you do for work? And they like give you a job title and you have nowhere to go, it's kind of awkward because you're just like, okay. But if it's like something you can just kind of bounce back into a joke, you're like, oh cool, you have a Rottweiler or whatever, and then you just go into your joke about
so it's not really crowd work, but it engages the crowd. But yeah, the other thing I guess you can do, which I've started trying to do, is just like writing answers to, so like if you ask someone what they do, just like writing answers for, you know, engineer, lawyer, real estate, all that sort of like all the generic sort of answers that they might give, like prepare those things, which I think a lot of people do, but it seems natural on stage. Yeah,
okay.
It's just a way to sort of start practicing that, and I guess doing this is a way, because you just, crowd work is a lot of the time is just a conversation, really.
Yeah. So, okay, so COVID's over. Where do you pick back up with your gigs and stuff? Well, not over, but like the COVID stuff eases down.
Yeah. So when COVID sort of eased down is when I started up my own room as well. So that's when BYO Laughs started up, was right on the tail end of COVID. So I focused more on, I guess, like running that room rather than doing comedy. But then I also got back into, you know, doing the standard sit down open mics, you know, getting on good chat, all that sort of, you know, the standard Brisbane slog of just seeing how many shows you can get on and that sort of routine. But I was very focused on running my own room at the time as well. Just straight after COVID.
So when along did you decide that you wanted to run a room?
Kind of during COVID, and I was a little bit fidgety, I guess, because there wasn't any comedy happening, and I just kind of thought, you know, when it starts up again, what's the type of room that I would like to run? And like, because the BYO room is a little bit different because it's in a cafe, it's not in a bar, it's, you know, and there's sort of longer sets, and there's like the meal and that sort of element as well. And I really just like, I kind of wanted to, I wanted to get into that side of things, but I also wanted to, you know, create something that was a little bit different to what already existed as well. And so that was half of it. And the other half was actually the venue itself. So Summit Cafe, where we have BYO Laughs, before COVID they used to have a dinner service, and after COVID they've just become like a breakfast and lunch sort of place. And it was just like a restaurant near me that I absolutely loved. And they used to run a BYO night there. And that was like one of my favorite nights. Like, I think they only ran it once a month. And I was like, that would be like on our calendar every month. Like, we're going to go to Sarmek for dinner. And when they came back after COVID, no longer did dinners. I was like, I really want a Sarmek dinner. I want to run a comedy show. I'm going to run a comedy show at Sarmek and make them like give me dinner. And that was kind of how I went about it.
That's funny. That's you won both ways then, I guess. You got to run a room and have dinners.
Yeah. And it's still, because it's such good food. And I was just like, I really want to eat this dinner. These dinners again, basically.
Yeah, it's so funny because I did your room, I think I did that room last year. You had me on, and I remember I was talking to you. I was like, like it's cool because I did a 10-minute spot. I said, like it's good that you're giving opportunities for people to do 10-minute spots. And you're like, and getting paid. I was like, wait, I'm getting paid? And you're like, yeah, you are, you fucking idiot.
That happens to be so often. And,
does it?
Yeah.
So it's like, not me.
It's not just you. And I'm always I get kind of upset because I'm like, part of what I was trying to do was also make a gig that like everyone always gets paid. Mm-hmm. And I thought that I've sort of like advertised that a bit, but I obviously haven't because I get it so many times.
I was like, I knew about the free dinner. I was like, cool, getting free dinner as well. That's sick.
And so like, and Cody always gives me shit about that because like, he's been in the same situation as you. And I was like, I swear I told you. And he's like, just sends me screenshots of all of our messages. He's like, you clearly never told me. And I'm like,
Cody Grimm's the enemy of the podcast.
he is the enemy of the podcast, yeah.
I'm on his side for this one, though.
Sorry?
I'm on his side for that, though, because I agree.
Why is he the enemy of the podcast?
Oh, you have to listen to the old episodes.
Okay.
There's a law to it.
There's a law to it?
There's a law to it. I've had people ask me if it's real. Like, two people have asked me if it's real.
Like your actual beef?
Yeah, the actual beef. They're like, is it real? And I'm like, of course it's real. Why would I fabricate something as a bit for a podcast?
Oh, yeah. Why would you do that? Yeah.
And anyway, so, yeah. So how do you have any advice? Because I'm considering maybe running a room at some stage. Do you have any advice for like seeking out venues or reaching out to venues?
So I've reached out to a lot of venues because I've been trying to not just do BYO and do like a couple of other things as well.
Yeah.
The two venues that I run are places that I already went to a lot.
Yeah.
So I've reached out. I've just sort of spent, I send emails, send Instagram messages to all these other like restaurants and bars and things. And the only ones that have ever really shown interest and the only ones that I do run rooms at are places that kind of, they didn't know me, but like I could sort of show that, like I was part of their business anyway. So if you've got like a place in mind, either start going there more regularly. Or if you've got a place that you go to regular, like a bar or somewhere that you go to regularly anyway, then I would start there. Because it just makes that conversation a lot easier. And it, you sound a lot less like a salesman. You sound more like someone that's just like trying to build something, I guess, a bit more wholesome and worthwhile.
It's just tricky because where I live and where I go is very close to both of the clubs. So it's I'm not trying to like...
kind of in the hot spot here.
Yeah, so I'm not like trying to tread on any toes or anything either.
Yeah, I don't think it's really treading on toes. Like it's pretty like it's almost central, like it's almost the center of town. So you can't really say that.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's a few places like there's a few bars down in Milton that would be perfect for room. And they have had some. There's a Common Ground in Milton that used to run I never did it, but.
Yeah, they did actually until recently. Julio ran that one. Yeah, that was pretty good. That was a weekly one. Another thing that sucks too is a lot of the weekly stuff is starting to kind of go away a little bit.
Yeah, and so I run monthly shows, and that's mainly because for two reasons. One is because running a show is a lot of
absolutely.
effort. It's like very time consuming. So I couldn't possibly do it. I couldn't possibly do it weekly. But also for me, for my audience, there wouldn't be like the appetite for a weekly show. Like I just, instead of getting 50 people at my monthly show, I'd get like 10 people at each of the weekly shows. So it's that's probably why a lot of the weekly ones are dying off.
Especially a show like yours is like heavily curated, so it makes sense to I feel like doing something weekly is more like in the spirit of like an open mic kind of thing.
And that's why most of the weekly shows are open mic or sort of semi open mic, semi curated. But yeah, what type of what would you do? Sort of like a weekly open mic, or would you do something a bit more curated, or how much have you thought about it?
Not overly, honestly, but I think for the like logistically, I think it'd be like monthly.
Yeah,
because it's just like, working full time as well as like putting this out weekly and things like that too. It's like, I don't want to like add another thing like another weekly thing, because it's like, as I can imagine, it's like dealing with venue, and then you're booking people every week too.
Yeah.
So I feel like monthly, but I guess maybe not fully open, maybe like half open mic, or like maybe open mic and like a headliner. Maybe I really haven't thought that much into it.
Yeah.
But it's more of just be a cool thing to another experience. In comedy, just to see the behind the scenes of running rooms and stuff.
And that was one of the main reasons that I started out again, was just seeing that side of things, seeing what it takes to produce a show, dealing with like different levels of comics as well, with people that are fully professional comics and people that are open micers and everyone in between. You get really good exposure to that through running. You get also, because you're dealing with the more professional comedians as well, you sort of see what their habits are as compared to the non-professional comedians as well, and like that can be really interesting. Just like the way they sort of communicate with you, and the like. So just like things like sending invoices, I find like a lot of the open micers, maybe it's because people don't know that I'm paying them, but I find a lot of like the sort of not fully professional comedians or open micers will take ages to send an invoice.
Yeah.
And a lot of the fully professional, it'll be like there the next day.
Yeah. That was me. If you were to pay me again, I'd send it straight away. So. But yeah.
but it's just that type of thing. Like they're really on their game, and they'll share their stories and like the Instagram stories and things, and they'll like sort of give you video, like they've got that sort of like package if like, because I get people to send like a bio and a headshot and that sort of thing for promotional purposes, and most of the professional comedians were like, this is my this is my promo kit, here it is. And then some of the people who are not as professional will be like, oh shit, maybe try this photo, and I haven't written a bio. Like it's just so
that was also me.
It was it's a lot of people, and that type of thing got me to being like, okay, I need to have a pack.
Well, that
sort of changed me as a comedian as well, having that experience, because you're sort of seeing it through their eyes and seeing what they do.
Yeah, doing the podcast is a little bit like that, and especially now, like I'm starting to get like asked doing some more things that are like they ask for a headshot, and I'm always like, here's a stage photo. I need to like go and buy. I think that's probably like,
your hair is terrible to Photoshop as well. Can I just say?
Oh yeah, I think you told me. Yeah, you're probably the second or third person in the comedy realm to tell me that. Yeah. Like
my Photoshop skills are not great. But yeah, like your like big bushy mane of red hair was like so hard for me to like crop and shit. I think I can't remember what I did. I think maybe I just sort of like shoved you in the corner or made you black and white or something.
I'm gonna look that up later.
Yeah, I'll see what I did.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, so you started running the room. That was end of 2020.
2021.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. And yeah, it was October 21 was the first show.
Yeah.
Had Stephen J. Whiteley was headlining that, and I think Chris Martin was the MC. Ashwin was on that lineup as well. Yeah.
Friend of the podcast,
Ashwin. I think Meg and Rach were on that as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
It's good solid lineup to kick it off, and yeah.
So yeah, end of this year, be running it for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
And I don't think it's going away anytime soon as well. Like I've been trying to expand it this year with the other room, and sort of expanding out. I'm doing a show in Kilcoy next week. Like an hour and a half of Brisbane, out of Brisbane, just trying to, I guess, do something different. But I think I'll actually probably be scaling it back next year, just because, again, it's quite difficult doing all of that stuff. But I wanted to expand it initially to have like the same lineup on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday show, like have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday lineup, and just like have the same people at different venues. And it sounded really good in theory. It's been really hard to pull off. I think I'm gonna go.
You have to have, people have that 4 days free or whatever.
Yeah, people have to have the 4 days free. You've got to get all of the venues to agree, like to line up with the same dates.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that I've done with comedy that's just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
And so there's no real thought to it, but what I had in my head was like, if I can do 4 shows in a row and get like a sort of pay a headliner for 4 shows, then I can pay them quite well. And then I'll be getting sort of bigger names, and then the bigger names will then sell tickets, and that sort of, that was where my thinking went. But I still don't think I was really paying the bigger names enough to get them interested. So I think I might scale back and just sort of focus on just like small little community comedy night.
Yeah, cool. Sweet. So you also did your you have a solo show as well.
Yeah. So I did my solo show the first time at the Good Chat Comedy Festival last year.
Yep.
And yeah, that went really well. I really like the longer format. I said this to another friend of the show, Greg Sullivan, last night.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, really? You like spending more time on stage?" Funny that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know any comedian that wants to spend more time on stage. But yeah, I really like the longer format. It lets you get into, I guess, get a bit deeper into things, and I sort of tell longer stories and things like that. And you do start to get into rhythm. So I've done that at Good Chat, and I did Adelaide earlier this year. Did 3 shows at the Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
Did a show up in Kingaroy last year, which was a bit of a bust. And did it like about a month ago as well. Just in I hired out a community hall in Bulimba.
Yeah.
And just put it on and sort of did it under the BYO banner.
Yeah.
The BYO Laughter presents.
Yeah.
Nigel Seto, and even though it's just me presenting me, I'm going to continue doing that. I'd like to start, I guess, touring that around a bit and doing.
I was gonna say regional North Queen, Mackay, because the name of the show is
So the show's Minor Threat, and it's a show about I work in the mining industry, and it's a show about the mining industry and living in mining towns and sort of some of the shenanigans that go on at site. And so it is quite targeted, I guess, at that more regional audience. I the city audiences like it as well, because I think there is a part of Australia that's everyone knows about mining, everyone knows the sort of FIFO culture, and it's kind of I think some people are a little bit curious if they're not fully involved. Some people are sort of curious what it's all about. So it's not the crowd isn't always all mining people, but it certainly does help when there are mining people in the crowd, because some of the jokes are a bit niche and things like that. But so the next plan with that show is to do a bit of a regional tour. Do like Mackay and Townsville and Cairns.
Yep.
Not that Cairns is really a mining town, but there's a lot going up in Cairns. So
yeah, definitely.
And also sort of around Newcastle and the Hunter Valley and stuff, because I used to live in the Hunter Valley. And yeah, big coal mining region, and like not most of the show, but I'd say half of the show is targeted at the Hunter Valley.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the plan moving forward for Minor Threat. Yeah.
Yeah, you get good, and also like not even just the theme and through line of the show, like it being a mining thing and doing it in mining towns. Like obviously regional places don't get a lot of comedy. So if they love, like when I've done shows in Mackay, like there's always been really good, one show I did last, like 2 years ago, Anna Brennan did, and there was like over 100 people there.
Yeah.
So
I think you have to pick the regional town. So I did a show in Kingaroy. So yeah, I did a show in Kingaroy last year. Enemy of the show, Cody Grimsey, supported me. Sorry about that. Just, associating with the enemy. And it was in the Kingaroy Town Hall, which holds 750 people. 12 people turned up. And
it's a lot of leg room.
It's a lot of leg room. It was, it became funny because of it.
Yeah.
And the 12 people that were there fucking loved it. So, I kind of did still enjoy the night. And the really weird thing about that was 40 people bought tickets.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's like...
And then just...
What? That's like... That's a quarter... That's three quarters. Three quarters I'd be like, nah, I'm not.
My only explanation was...
A lot of people got sick.
No, the World Cup was on.
Yeah.
The Soccer World Cup. And Australia were playing at the same time. And so that was that was the only way I justified it in my head, was like, oh, maybe they've just, didn't think Australia would get as far, and
maybe the one road got blocked.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, like Kingaroy was the one regional town I've done. And yeah, my theory was really like, oh, it's a regional town, like what else are they going to do? And turns out there's a lot of other things they'd rather do. After the show, we went to Macca's, and there was like 60 people in the Macca's. I was like, we should just, stand at the table and do the show here.
How have you found the progression of your like doing? So you've done your show maybe like 4 or 5 times now. Yeah. How do you find? Because it's one of those things where you get to do open mics and stuff a lot, where you do like 5-minute increments, but it's kind of crazy you've only had the chance to do like an hour or 50 minutes on stage like a handful of times.
Yeah.
Do you find each time you do it, you can kind of be like, okay, next time I'm gonna you can.
Yeah. So it's still an iterative process like that, and so I still have changed a lot. So I think I've done it 6 times, and yeah, each time has been different, and I'd definitely say better and better each time as well.
Yeah.
So it's that's another reason why I kind of want to do the tour, is just kind of to keep working on it, because you're right, you can't really work on it doing 5-minute bits everywhere. Like you do, you sort of do different 5-minute sets at every open mic or at every show around Brisbane, but it also, some of the stories in there are sort of 10-12 minute stories, so it's kind of hard to practice that at an open mic. So there's a lot of stuff that I do in my solo show that I've never done anywhere else, and I've only done it in my solo show. And I do I just kind of have to practice it, and I listen to it back, and
So you said some bits you don't only do in the solo show.
Yeah.
So that means like the first time you did the solo show was the first time doing that.
Yeah.
On stage.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's like, how was the like? That'd be the most daunting part of it, right?
So, and I'm really bad at practicing. So, the first so before I did the Good Chat show, I was really nervous about those bits in particular. Yeah. I was really nervous about spending that much time on stage, and really nervous about those bits in particular. Uh-huh. And I have a friend who's an actress, and she has to do a lot of like auditions and things like that. And I asked her like, because I find it really hard practicing comedy. Like I can't stand in my room or something and like do practice. I usually practice just by like in my head. I never vocalize it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really want to try and vocalizing it. And so I asked this friend of mine how she manages to just like talk in her bedroom, like at a camera and not think she's just like totally full of shit. Like just like get weird about it. And she was like, oh, I just get really drunk.
Oh my God.
I like, set up a camera, set up a camera, got a bowl of rum out and just like poured a couple of shots and started, doing the whole bit. And it worked. I sort of loosened up and had a bit of a party in my lounge room by myself, reading my material and recorded it. And then, I play my sets back to myself quite a lot. Like I know I hear a lot of people will record their set and then like never listen to it. I listen to my sets back quite a lot. Particularly like on my way to a gig, I'll play it in the car or like play it in headphones, and just because it makes it like I'm better at remembering it that way. And then I like a lot of joke telling, I guess, is not specifically the words, it's like how you say it. So if there's sometimes that I've said it like in a specific way that I really like, I'll like save that recording of that particular joke and then listen to that over and over again, and so I can practice it.
Cool. I guess also like rehearsing, doing heaps of reps on a certain joke, over time you'd probably form a way that you kind of like phrase it. You might be like, okay, that you like kind of realize that certain things don't flow off the tongue as well as you thought it might have, like, and just doing that over and over again kind of makes you realize that. Or naturally you just like some of the jokes I used to do jokes like word for word, but over time when I stopped like looking at what I wrote just over time, it was so different like from what I originally wrote.
And it would probably become a lot more natural and probably funnier.
Yeah, because like it's one of those obvious things that the way you write is different to how you speak kind of thing too. So. Yeah.
So I will usually not write like a full joke. I'll usually write like a dot point.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to do that now a little bit, where I'm like, okay, this is this. But sometimes I will. Depends on the joke. Sometimes I feel like you do need maybe specific phrasing to make something a little bit punchier or flow better.
Yeah. So a lot of the time I'll do that, and I'll like have that dot. If I need to say it in a specific way, I'll either just remember that, or I'll have like it'll be 2 dot points. And then once I have a joke that I like and I'm doing regularly, is when I will like fully write it out, or like write it out how I think it is, and do the thing like I was saying earlier. It'd be like, okay, that's a 30-minute, or like that's a 30-second bit, and then and I'll write it out a bit more, and like, okay, now it's a minute and a half, just like by going off like the lines on the page, like how long it is.
Cool. So what's next for you?
Kind of just a bit of keep on keeping on at the moment. I'm kind of happy with where I am. So probably scaling back BYO to just being BYO and focusing on focusing on the main thing. And then, continuing to be doing, I guess the Brisbane circuit when I feel like it. And also looking for spots to do my solo show. So, really looking to focus on the solo show and doing, a Central Queensland tour at some point. I've been trying to do a Central Queensland tour for like a year.
Yeah, sweet. And where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram at Nigel Seto.
Yeah.
And they can also follow BYO Laughter on Instagram and Facebook and BYOcomedy.com.
Yeah, cool. And you have some BYO shows next week?
So next week, Thursday, we've got the Comedy and Cocktails at the Taylors in Wollongabba, little speakeasy bar. And Friday, the show in Kilcoy. And Saturday is the main event. And we've got a comedian up from Sydney, Ganeet Kaur, is the headliner for that show.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers.